So I went from being homeless to being on MTV within the space of a year and a half. When I first got clean, I'm 6 foot. I think I weighed 130 pounds. I was green. My teeth were falling out. We're getting kicked off Australian TV. We're getting kicked off Conan O'Brien. You know what I mean?
Which is tough to do when you're clean.
She messages me the next day, all caps, "You have to let me cover that up." And I said, no f***ing way.
That's awesome.
And I'm telling everybody you did it. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, Kat Von D. We would rehearse 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. And I thought that was f***ing normal. McGrath found knee pads somewhere. He comes onto our bus in knee pads, drops to his knees, and he's got, in each hand, he's got handfuls of 20s. And he said, "Who do I have to or pay to get you guys to quit blowing us off the stage?"
Wow.
Welcome to 90who10. I'm Jessica Entner.
I'm Dan Eisenstein.
And today we have a very special guest. One near and dear to my heart and reminds me of all the bad things I did in my 20s. He is a musician and guitar aficionado, an Alfred Hitchcock-loving animal lover, the one, the only Charlie Paulson from Goldfinger. Oh, I forgot actor.
Hi, Smokey.
Hi.
Whoa.
Yeah, there's nicknames.
I feel like we need an episode just on the bad things you did in your 20s.
I don't think we have. Well,
You got it.
so Charlie, I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for driving across town on a Friday to come during rush hour. I appreciate that very much.
It gave me a minute to remember a bunch of stories from our shared history.
Which scares me because you keep telling me things. I'm like, I don't remember
none of
any
these,
of these
None
things.
of these cast you in a bad
Oh,
light.
well, that's
I'll
good.
be taking over from here.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
Well, how did you guys meet? How do you guys know each other?
I was playing at the Palladium with my band was playing with Sugar Ray.
This Goldfinger?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had friends up in the balcony and I wanted to see them. And then I see this one. And I was like, I'm going to be friends with her.
I like it.
And I walked over and she had a friend with her and it made it so much easier because I didn't have to say anything. I didn't have to use a lame pickup line or anything. Her friend immediately just set upon me.
Oh, great.
Talking and hi. And she knew everything about my band. And she really was the best wingman I could possibly ask for because she made me sound like something more than I was to this person who I was just shook. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then we wound up going to the after party together and she and I just clicked.
I barely remember the after party.
I know you do.
Which is really funny. And I just need to preface this. Charlie met me at like the height of my cuteness. On top of it, I'm going to be very honest. I was 21 or just newly 21 and thought my shit didn't stink. So definitely, I remember what I was wearing when we met though, but I don't remember it being a Sugar Ray show. And I definitely missed the opening act, which was you guys. So like, I thought I was there to see Red Hot Chili Peppers. I think that's who I remember. Like, I don't remember being Sugar Ray because I'm like, I didn't go to a Sugar Ray show, but I think like it was just that was it. Like I became a kind of a fixture at all the music shows. Like I saw everybody in my 20s at the Troubadour.
Well, I think you were working
at Maverick
at the time.
I like no offense to Charlie or anybody else.
We
in
were
that
not
realm.
on her radar yet.
Not at all. But here in my bedroom is a fucking banger. It's just a great song. And that song was all over the radio at the time.
I can almost picture Sugar Ray, but punk rock, I don't see in you,
and I liked some of it, but like Mark McGrath is actually a nice guy.
He's a super nice guy.
Super nice guy.
But like Sugar Ray was like
there's this phenomenon known to bands, and that's GGBB. Good Guys, Bad Band.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of them that fall under that category.
Yeah.
Great dude.
Yeah, great dude.
Yeah.
The funniest story I have about Mark is we were on tour with them and they had huge records. But album sales don't always translate to ticket sales. So, and we were a touring act. they had sold many more records than us. We were selling easily as many tickets as they were to these shows. We played a show at First Avenue in Minneapolis, which is where Prince shot Purple Rain. I'm a huge Prince fan, legendary club. We play the show. After we're done, I go up into the production office because I want to get a First Avenue t-shirt. While I'm up there, I hear them on the walkie-talkie, and they're saying, and somebody is yelling to the bar to quit putting ice in the drinks because Sugar Ray, literally they said, the Goldfinger kids are pelting Sugar Ray with ice. No more ice in the drinks. Sugar Ray finishes. We're on our bus. We're ready to leave to the next town. Somehow, McGrath found knee pads somewhere. He comes onto our bus in knee pads, drops to his knees, and he's got, in each hand, he's got handfuls of 20s. And he said, who do I have to blow or pay to get you guys to quit blowing us off the stage? And that showed his sense of humor and his humility. You know what I mean? The first few shows we did with them, I was like, nah, I'm not fucking with these dudes at all. Can I swear on this?
Oh, yeah.
I just dropped the C word 2 seconds.
Then, okay, I was like, all right. You know, and then I found out I had a lot in common with those guys. We had a shared love of the Lakers and of punk history, which to hear I Just Want to Fly, you don't think that these guys have any awareness of TSOL or the Germs, but they did. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Now, Mark, I think, has got a punk rock background.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's amazing once, the record company gets a hold of you and starts to market you what you can turn into, especially if you're hungry to succeed, which the landscape was a lot different back then.
Well, Mark and Stan particularly were no dummies. And I think they realized that they weren't a great hard rock band. And Stan had a knack for writing these fucking hooks.
Yeah.
Go where the love is.
And they had 3-4 big hits.
Yeah.
They did.
Sure.
But you grew up in LA.
Yeah.
Where did you grow up?
Hollywood, Silver Lake, the Valley primarily.
And what was your upbringing like? Because you got into music really early.
Well, when I was 7, some girl from down the street came over to babysit me, and she brought over a stack of records. Among these records was Kiss Love Gun and Kiss Destroyer. At 7 years old, I'd grown up with music in the house. My dad was always playing Hendrix or the Stones or whatever, and I was a voracious comic book reader. And this 13-year-old girl, who of course I had a crush on, shows up with Kiss records, and I'm looking at this, and it's like, these are superheroes with guitars. So it was perfect. So from the age of 7, I wanted to be Ace Frehley. And then I've told the story 1,000 times, but it slowly progressed into, I started playing, and then I got into punk rock, and you know what I mean?
It's so funny when you hear people talk about Kiss who grew up, around that. Everybody wants to be Ace. Like it's
Ace
so,
was the cool one.
He was.
Ace was the cool one.
Yeah. Paul's with the makeup off. Paul's kind of like the sultry, good-looking one, but all the guys wanted to be
the
Ace.
engine of that band. Gene Simmons gets a lot of credit that Paul Stanley deserves.
I know.
Yeah. Don't you have an Ace Frehley tattoo?
Okay, so we're starting with celebrity stories already.
I guess so.
I was at this bar in Hollywood one night, and a up-and-coming tattoo artist used to drink at this bar often, and she would do this thing where she would open the tattoo shop late after the bar time and drunken tattoos. And whoever wanted to could go in and we'd all tattoo each other.
Yeah.
So this soon-to-be very famous tattoo artist, hammered as shit, tattooed Ace Frehley as God on me. And it looks like Abe Freshley is Goob.
Let's see it. Oh, my goodness. That's hysterical.
And this is in the time of instant messenger.
Yeah.
She messages me the next day, all caps, "You have to let me cover that up." And I said, no fucking way.
That's awesome.
And I'm telling everybody you did it. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, Kat Von D.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Amazing. You were in that scene. Like you were in like the rock and roll
for sure.
scene.
Yeah.
But when did that start? Like young? Were you kind of playing around?
Yeah, I was in a bunch of high school bands like everybody, but when I was 19, things got rough for me really early. And 17, 18, 19, I was basically living on the streets. Like, there used to be this spot on Wilcox and Hollywood Boulevard called Tommy Burger. Not affiliated with the official, but it was open 24 hours and it was hideous. It was just like this giant open warehouse. It is what became Kung Pao Kitty.
I'm like, I don't remember.
It looked like it looked like a prison cafeteria.
Mm-hmm.
Stark white walls, oppressive fluorescent lighting, but you never get kicked out of there, and it was open all night. And I would spend countless nights in there, or I was sleeping on roofs, and then I became friends with the other people around that area, and I started living in squats. I used to live in the squat right off of Wilcox across the street from there, or I'd sleep on rooftops, whatever. And then I got clean, and then I met this dude who looked like Slash at a meeting. He's like, dude, come crash with me. And I figured he probably had some Hollywood apartment, whatever. We go to this Mackin house in Hancock Park. And he's this adopted, troubled kid who just lived with him and his mom. It was very much Anthony Perkins and Psycho sort of scenario. So I go literally from living in a burned out retail space off of Hollywood Boulevard to this insane house in Hancock Park. And he had this band called Squirm that was basically a ripoff of the Misfits and Black Flag. And that was the first band that I really started gigging around Hollywood in. And we played all the classic spots, played Jabberjaw and Owl's Bar and the Anti Club and all those places. And I was 19, so I was sneaking into these places we're not allowed to be in there. So that was really the first band.
And not to age you, but what year around are we talking about?
90, 91.
Okay.
Yeah.
So right when the music scene was kind of just on a shift, right?
Yes.
I mean, we were Sunset Boulevard, hair metal. Yeah.
And then it became alternative. That's when Fishbone and the Chili Peppers and Jane's Addiction and Thelonious Monster and Mary's Danish and all these bands. Yeah. That's when
all great bands, by the way.
All bands that came up on punk but weren't punk.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I know Bauhaus was a massive influence on Jane's. X was a massive influence on Mary's Danish, but they didn't want to, you know what I mean? They were doing their own thing. There was a band called Lions and Ghosts, Rick Parker.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
What
I
a
haven't
great
heard
time for
that
the
name.
LA music scene.
It was so
fucking
fun.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody talks about Seattle at that time, the grunge thing, but that
LA was throwing down.
Yeah,
for sure.
for sure.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I will put Fishbone up against any of those.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you were 17, like what made you leave home? Just were you really in a bad way?
My mom married this dude, Dave, my stepdad, and he was great. And this was but they wanted to move to Lancaster. And I was like, nah.
Thanks.
So I stayed with a friend for a while, and then that went sideways. And then I was guitar teching for bands in a lot of strip bands like Roxy, Gazzarri's, all that shit. So I wound up just crashing on their floors in Hollywood apartments. And then when my habit became my number one priority, then I just wound up on the streets.
It's interesting because, the show is 90who10. And so there's a lot of what we've spent time talking about is like Beverly Hills and some celebrity stuff. But this is a really great other side of it because the strip is, literally a block away from Beverly Hills. Yeah. And there's this amazing scene that was going on at that time. And we're just getting into it with Charlie. I can't wait to see where else this goes because it's really exciting.
And he was really a big
such a part of like my growing up.
Yeah.
Yeah. At the Roxy and the Rainbow when I was 16 years old. Yeah.
I was 7.
I started sneaking into the Rainbow when I was 16.
Yeah.
And now I go there and I can't imagine a 16-year-old. When's the last time you talked to a 16-year-old? They're like a child.
Oh, yeah.
And they speak a different language.
Oh, that's a whole
I couldn't
other
imagine.
thing.
I couldn't imagine.
But I used to sneak in there all the fucking time.
Yeah.
They make us sit at the table in the kitchen that they don't even have anymore.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah.
And you used to be able to use that bathroom in the kitchen. And
not for going to the bathroom.
Yeah, I got up to a lot of business in that bathroom for sure.
Yeah.
So just to you've been sober now for how many years?
30 years. It will be 31 next month.
I love your story because it is different than how what I was raised around in the music. You were like a real musician who came from like playing in all these random bands and like had a Hollywood backstory.
And
like
a product of like the scene and the strip and the streets.
Yeah. And so when Charlie and I met, we did click. I mean, it was like I still remember we'd be out together and people would be like, Jess, have you met Charlie? And I always made a joke. It looked like it was like the Gap girl cheerleader and like the vampire. And like people always felt like they had to introduce us because we were so.
You guys are so opposite.
But here's the funny thing, because of who she was and her ties to the music industry, and because I was a guitar player in a working band, we knew so many of the same people, but those people didn't assume we knew each other. You know, like we would go to clubs, like Pantera Sarah's clubs and Bold House clubs, and they would wave us both in to skip the line, not realizing that we'd shown up together.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it would happen all the time.
We had a lot of really good times. I mean, it was definitely, and I don't have a lot of pictures, but every once in a while I'll pull something out of my hat and I'm like, Jesus Christ, where the hell did this come from? And there's like a couple where literally, because you were wearing makeup at the time.
Oh, yeah. I was super ghouly gothy.
Guyliner?
It came more from like the Damned and early social media. I wasn't, it wasn't so much glam as it was, because I was also pasty as fuck.
Yeah.
So it was like, he was so white.
God, I bet.
How white was he?
I bet we knew a few of the same people.
I'm sure we did.
Yeah.
Like, remember that guy? You know who you looked like for a very brief second? Because I think you had like a little goatee going for a minute because it was the 2000s. What was that guy who was like the satanic ruler?
Anton LaVey. Yes. And it's not the first time I've heard that.
Totally had a moment. And so it really was like very stark differences between the two of us. You know? And no, it was great. But I will say this. Charlie is honestly one of the best guitar players I've ever seen live. I mean, he puts everything into it. It's all energy. It's all heart. And he's a damn fucking great guitar player.
Thank
But like,
Smokey.
I don't even know how you move around the stage with the guitar like that. Like he does like freaking pirouettes.
That's
it's
awesome.
nuts.
I want to go to a Goldfinger show
It's
now.
pretty, honestly, it's a good show. It's a good show.
I think we're playing the Wiltern in July.
All right.
So
we
Nice.
should go check it out.
Yeah, for sure. How did you find your way, or how did you end up getting into Goldfinger? Because you've been playing around LA a bit. You knew
Well,
all the
again, when I
people.
first got clean, I was in that band Squirm, and the other guitar player, the guy who I was living with, there was another band at the time called the Electric Love Hogs, and they were fucking huge on the scene. So I started working for them, and then I became friends with a couple of those guys, and John Feldman, the singer in Goldfinger, was in the Love Hogs. He and I bonded over like the Buzzcocks and the Descendants and all that shit. And, you know, the Love Hogs were more like Faith No More. At a certain point, they made a record, they toured, and I think he just got burnt on it. He played me a cassette. He made a little demo of just a bunch of these like really sort of simple pop punk songs. He said, "Do you want to do this?" And that's basically where it started. You know what I mean? He wanted to go back to his roots, and I had everybody that I was playing with was, at the time, was just a total fuck up. And I knew John, he was not fucking around, and he had an insane work ethic. And I knew that this would not be a waste of my time.
Was that the first band that you were in that kind of like took off? Because that was, what, 90? When did that single?
Goldfinger started in 94. The first record came out in early 96. Okay. No, like I said, I'd been in a bunch of bands that played, you know, around town all the time, but nothing that, you know, did anything. And so, yeah, that was the first band. I mean, we would rehearse 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. And I thought that was fucking normal. I mean, we hit the ground running. We'd be playing these shows at the Whiskey or the Troubadour with these other bands, and we'd be smoking them, and we'd been together for a couple of months.
Right.
Because we just had that kind of fucking work ethic.
You also had a presence. I mean, again, Goldfinger as a show, like regardless of whether I liked the band or not, I obviously had seen them play a couple times because we were friends, and they were so fun. They were like a fun band. John Feldman is an amazing songwriter. He's still producing all sorts of different stuff. I mean, he knows how to write.
Was he wearing the suits back then? For the shows?
We started in suits. And then when we would start touring a lot, it just became a pain in the ass. Yeah. And then
but he still wears the suit, doesn't
we're
he?
kind of back to suits now.
All of you guys.
Ish. Or some version of it. Yeah.
When you started touring with Goldfinger, tell us about those days. Because I have some pictures that you used to send me from diners.
So I went from being homeless to being on MTV within the space of a year and a half. And then we were on fucking tour. We are in the Guinness Book of World Records for the most shows played in a year. Played something like 380 something shows.
Wow.
Yeah.
In the space of 365 days. So it was, at first, it was exciting and it was amazing. By the end of that year, we were dead.
Yeah, exhausted.
We were fucking dead. And then but I mean, it was crazy. I mean, like I said, when I first got clean, I'm 6 foot. I think I weighed 130 pounds.
Oh,
I was
wow.
green. My teeth were falling out. And then next thing I know, I'm opening for the fucking Sex Pistols. Do you know what I mean? We're playing shows with, fucking everybody. You know, we're on the Warped Tour and we toured with Bad Religion. These were bands that I grew up loving. Do you know what I mean? And and we were traveling all over the world. We're getting kicked off Australian TV. We're getting kicked off Conan O'Brien. You know what I mean? Like,
which is tough to do when you're clean.
Yeah.
That says a lot. Right?
Yeah.
And how was that, being clean and on tour?
For me, it was fun. It was fine because Feldy's also clean. So we had each other in that way. And also we never stopped moving. So it's, idle hands do the devil's work. We did not have idle hands.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'd play 3 shows a day. There would be times when we'd have a show at night and we'd have to go into some radio station at 6 a.m. to play live on the air. We were doing it was non-fucking stop.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
How many records did that album sell? Did it go platinum?
Yes. However, the dude that owns the label that record came out on,
Mojo?
he and Feldy don't speak, so he won't register it with the RIAA. So we have gold plaques, but we don't have platinum plaques for it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But that's a crazy schedule. Was that more from you guys or from the label and the people?
Everybody. They, the label management, publicist, whoever said yes to everything.
And you guys were cool with it. You didn't.
I mean, we were fucking tired.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm 25.
Yeah.
Living on coffee and cigarettes,
Yeah.
and I'm like, let's go.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And probably being told this is what you need to do to take it to the next level.
Well, I certainly didn't have big picture in mind.
Yeah.
Our tour manager would say, we'd come off stage and we'd be going out to eat or something like that. Tour manager would be like, hey, some chick from the radio station is going to come pick you up at 5:30 because you're the morning radio guy. And I'd be like, all right, I guess I'm just going to stay up.
Yeah.
So I would just stay up, go do morning radio, go pass out for a couple hours, go to sound check, and then do it all over again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But when you're 25, you've got endless fucking energy.
Sure.
Yeah.
What a time, though.
Yeah.
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 That's good. I mean, you had a really good run. I mean, when we met, it was 97, 98. That was the era. And you were on tour a lot that year.
Yes.
Because I do remember and he was sending me postcards.
Yeah.
I mean, this was before the internet.
That's cool.
So
For those of you kids out there, postcards are something you send in the mail. Yeah.
I actually found a picture. I swear, I hope I didn't throw it away. Recently, I probably did, but it was a plate. I might have said it was like a plate of eggs and like a full ashtray at some truck stop. And he would send me shit like this.
Yeah,
it was great. It was great.
That's
For
cool.
take pictures with like the diner. Like I remember there's one where you look like you got in a fight. I'm like, what?
It's possible. We fought a lot on that.
That's awesome.
In the early days.
Oh my god.
You don't hear that these days of like bands fighting. That was like a thing in the 80s and 90s.
This was when it was so dangerous. You know?
We had 2 things going against us. One, we came from punk rock. We had a very punk rock attitude. So we would fight with local security.
Yeah.
We got into a fucking huge brawl in Pittsburgh on the Bad Religion tour with local cops.
I love it.
Cops.
Yeah.
And we're just full on.
I love it.
Knockdown, drag out.
Again, tough to do when you're clean. But yeah,
So
I love it. I love it.
That was one end of it. But on the other end, because we were on MTV and the radio, a lot of punks thought we were fucking sellouts. So we were fighting with punks all the time too.
Yeah.
Darren and I were good to go. We were the likely lads.
Yeah.
We would fight with anybody. And sometimes we would fight with each other.
Okay.
And John,
I remember Darren very well.
Yeah.
I don't see John as a fighter.
John, he was not afraid.
Yeah, okay.
A lot of times we get in these fights because of some shit he said on stage.
Yeah.
And then we'd come off stage and somebody would be waiting for us. And, John throws down.
Yeah.
And now he's been boxing for years.
Yeah, now he's boxing.
So
I see
he's
it on Instagram.
probably more dangerous now than he was then, but he certainly was not afraid. Although there were a couple of times where I had to step in all fucking 150 pounds of me at the time. But there was a couple of times I had to step in and
that's great.
Finish his meal.
Awesome.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
You're right though. The danger's gone.
That's gone. That's gone.
It was fun.
Yes.
I mean, even my dad has stories of like getting
sure.
knives pulled on him and stuff, but
I had another band around 2000, the mid 2000s called Black President.
Okay.
And this is, and it was very much just a dirty political street punk band. It was not like Goldfinger in that respect. But it was also the height of emo. And we were on, Black President did Warped Tour 2 or 3 years. A lot of times, these sideways haircut bands would start chirping at us. My bass player and I, especially at the time, we know. And we'd be like, oh, and we would just start swinging. And they were like, and you could tell it was the attitude had changed from like, the first time we did Warped Tour was 96. And like on that Warped Tour was like No Effects, Civ, The Bouncing Souls. And these guys all came from, if you open your mouth, you better be ready to back it up. And come the mid 2000s, people would pop off and not expect anything.
That's right.
And we just fucking knock somebody out or down, and they'd be like, what the fuck? Like, it's like, well,
shut your mouth.
Fucking you started it, And so maybe that was early social media. I don't know, but the thing had definitely changed. You know what I mean?
I'm really impressed that we never got arrested together.
There was one time when I was driving your Pathfinder when I had to outrun the cops.
I don't remember this.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
What? I don't even want to know. I don't even want to know.
We were coming from something, and we were on Fountain and La Brea, and I turned south on La Brea, and we were arguing. And
back clocks.
We had stopped at a stop sign or a light or something, and you were very big, and there was a cop pulled up next to us, and it was obvious something was going on. And then we get to La Brea, and they slowed down and got behind us and hit the lights. And I'm like, nope, I am not dealing with this right now. So
I do not remember this.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
You had a gold Pathfinder.
I do remember, I do remember the gold Pathfinder. I do remember, slightly, swiping, someone's, mirror near your street once. That I remember that. I remember doing. But when you were on tour and, because you guys toured, nonstop for, 2 years.
Oh, yeah. Well, we toured nonstop up through 2001. That's when I quit the band. And then when they went out on tour for the record that I quit on, they never toured like that again. And then when I came back to the band, that was breakneck. I mean, that would kill anybody. Do you know what I mean? So, but those first 3 or 4 years were insane.
How long were you away from the band?
I've quit the band 3 times. Somebody sent me a screenshot recently of a comment on YouTube. It said, Charlie just comes and goes as he pleases. I love it. And the first time I was away from the band for 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
And then I left again. And then I came back. Feldy and I, every record, you like clockwork, we're going to get into a huge knockdown drag out at some point. And the last record, we got into a huge fight. He's like, I'm afraid every time you get pissed off, you're going to quit. And I told him, I said, nah, those days are, I said, I have earned my place on that stage. I've earned my place in this band. I love it. And I'm not going anywhere. So we're just going to have these fights.
That's awesome. I've had relationships like that where whether it's a girlfriend or whatever. And if you can't be able to talk about everything, you're afraid that if you say something, the other person's just going to quit on you. That sucks.
If somebody is willing to argue with you, that means they care.
Right.
John and I are very, very different people, but he is my fucking brother.
I love that.
Do you know what I mean? And in the past, I would just say, fuck it. I don't care. I'm done. When I came back to the band this time and we started playing shows, I connected with our history and with our fans in a way that I never had before. Do you know what I mean? And I realized because we still tour and we sell as many tickets as we ever have. And it's crazy. And now there's generations coming to see us. And there's people with Goldfinger tattoos. And there's We have a song called Mabel. And I don't know if you know anything about this song, but it's basically the polite version is John lost a girl to me because of the way John and I are built and how it's different physically. That's all I'm going to say.
Nicely put.
So we played some festival somewhere, and I was walking around, and this couple came up to me, and they had like a 3-year-old daughter. And they said, Charlie, it's really nice to meet you, blah, 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 blah. This is our daughter, Mabel. And I did not know how to fucking take that.
That's
you
hysterical.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
That is hilarious.
So,
I love it.
Yeah.
That's
So
hysterical.
now you have children named after your songs inappropriately.
Yes, very inappropriately.
Yeah.
I love it.
That is so. You're like, did you listen to this song?
Yeah.
I love
That's
it.
so funny. I while you were in and out of Goldfinger, you also got into acting.
Yeah, I mean that actually started while I was still in the band the first time, but it was a complete accident. I was at a show at the Troubadour. I can't remember who it was. I think it might have been 7 Seconds, but I went outside to smoke, and there was just a bunch of punks out there, and this really sort of straight-looking couple of kids came up, and they had clipboards, and they were collecting extras for this movie about Nazi skinheads. And they wanted punks and whatever. Yeah. And they said $75 a day and we feed you. And we were like, yeah.
Yeah.
So a bunch of friends and I went and showed up on set the next day or whenever it was. And it was Wingshauser and Kohlhauser were in this movie. Or running it, whatever.
I love Cole Hauser from Dazed and Confused.
Yeah. I'm a huge 70s, 80s action B movie, and I knew who Wingshauser was. Oh, and Linda Blair was in this movie too.
Oh, wow.
And The Exorcist is my favorite movie of all time. So I would strike up conversations with them, and Wings just decided I like this kid, and he started giving me lines. And then they tapped Heartlead me, and that's how I got my SAG card.
Yep.
So I wound up, I don't think I've ever seen the movie. I'm not even sure if it ever came out. It just sort of happened. And then I gave a friend of mine a ride to talk to his agent one day, and I was just hanging out in the lobby. We were sitting there waiting for him to go in, and she came out and to get him. And I introduced myself. She said, "Nice to meet you." And they go in the office, and a couple of minutes later, they call me in, and she said, "Do you have any interest? And have you done?" And I said, "A little, whatever." So she signed me, and then she started sending me out on shit. And I'm like, I don't want to do this. I remember one time I went and picked up headshots for you, and you were telling me about auditions, and I'm like, that sounds awful.
Yeah.
And then I started doing this awful shit, like getting up at the crack of dawn to drive to Santa Monica to read for a commercial that, I mean, I would walk in to these commercials, and there would be a waiting room full of dudes that like looked nothing like me. They were all the blonde, tan surfer types, but somewhere in the breakdown it said tattoos. So my agent would send me on these things, and I call her. I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, I don't look like I'm not right. She goes, that's not the point. The point is to get you in front of these casting directors. And sure enough, then I was to start getting calls for things that I was right for. And it was always a bad guy on a cop show, you know, a CSI type thing. And I played a Nazi, a kidnapper, a Nazi, a car thief, a Nazi, a human trafficker, a Nazi, a drug dealer. So, you know, that's sort of how that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Laughing so hard.
I love the way you put that. Yeah.
So then now it totally makes sense why people would always introduce us, because they'd be like, there's no way these two. He's a Nazi skinhead. Yeah, all of it.
Yeah.
Whatever. So funny. So funny. But you had a couple successes in that. I mean,
Oh,
you
yeah.
you were on a...
I was on The Shield. I was on Justified. I've been in a couple of movies. I got cut out of a couple of movies. Yeah.
Did you start hanging out with like any actor people while you were doing
Not really. I dated an actress for a while, and I'm not going to say her name, but she was a fucking nut job.
Are you still acting?
Not actively. I mean, I would.
Yeah.
I have a couple of friends of mine that are, one is a casting director, one is married to a casting director, and they talk to me about shit all the time. But the thing is, The Hangover and Mike Tyson ruined it for people with tattoos because the tattoo artist that put that tribal on Mike Tyson's face sued the studio.
Oh,
For
yeah.
IP.
Yeah, that's right.
Because they used that tattoo in a lot of the promotion and branding for that movie.
And he's wearing it. The other guy, Ed Elms.
It became a plot point.
Yeah.
And the tattooer is like, rightly so. He's like, yo, what,
that's my
fuck
work.
you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So he sued them. He won. So now I did a shoot. I can't remember what the show was, but they had me come in super inhumanely early to make up.
Just so you know, Charlie sleeps in a coffin and he gets up at noon. Maybe that was the old Charlie.
Oh,
But
still very much. But the reason they had me come in so early was they were covering my visible tattoos and then replacing them with tattoos.
Isn't that silly?
It was insane.
It's like next
I'm like,
level
I have
copyright.
They're like, yeah. And so now it's a whole process of like, you have to go to the artist who created your visible tattoos and you have to have them sign off on usage and all this shit. A couple of them are dead. A couple of them, I don't remember who they are.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? So yeah, it's that I think has been the biggest roadblock to me acting currently. And I haven't really pursued it, but I know that would be an issue.
Which is funny because, when you see people who their whole livelihood is acting and you see that they have like giant tattoos, I'm like, do you think about that?
Well, sometimes, Paris Jackson just went to one of the award shows where she fully covered up all her tattoos, just as like
that was a thing.
That was a thing to do, but like but exactly, you're like, oh wow, you do forget that people have that many tattoos, and that a lot of the actors do. Like, what's her name? I love her, Lena Headey, who was Cersei in Game of Thrones.
Oh yeah.
She's a full sleeve.
Stallone has tattoos.
Yeah.
The Rock has tattoos.
I did not know that.
But those are names.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying.
the first Nazi on the call sheet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But I will say, one of the nicknames, why he calls me Smokey, I assume it was because we so much smoking of cigarettes.
Chain smoke.
Yeah.
So many cigarettes were smoked and disgusting. We just that era, like anyone who smoked, chain smoked.
I smoked back then.
No, but when it was an interesting time because in the late 90s, early 2000s, the music scene was everything was bumping in LA. It really was. We've talked about this so many times on the show. It was such an era. And there were so many different facets to LA that were really blossoming. The nightlife all of a sudden caught up to New York a bit, right? Because New York had like you have to wait in line and you got to know someone to get in. And then all of a sudden LA became a little like that.
It was the spot. LA
it was a
the
thing.
Place, yeah.
And the music scene, we used to see, I saw so many bands. And I remember one night, this was actually great because there was a couple places that Charlie and I went to together that I still I can't unsee. There were a couple weird S&M clubs that I remember we went to and Drew Barrymore was there. And then all of a sudden Vice Squad comes in because there's underage dancers. And I'm like, we got to get the fuck out of here. And then you took me to see a band. And those who know this band, just Google them. Just do yourself a favor. Insipid Sea Snakes.
Impotent.
It's impotent sea
Impotent
snakes?
sea snakes.
Insipid, impotent sea snakes.
It's a big difference, Jess.
It really is. It really is. They were playing at the Troubadour, and this band is a performance art band, but I don't even know how to describe them. I think the lead singer was at the time they used to call it cross-dressing, but he would dress in female regalia and corsets. And then there'd be a kid swinging from his shoulders from a meat hook. Oh yeah.
Hooked in, what do they call it? Suspension.
Yes.
Have you seen that?
Yeah, hook suspension.
I know a couple guys that do that.
Yes, so we were at the Troubadour, then some girl with tape over her boobs, lighting herself on fire. I'm just sitting here going.
This shows how different Jessica and I were.
This
made
an
indelible impression on me.
Yeah.
I don't remember it at all.
Right.
Crazy.
Yeah, there's some deep S&M shit in there.
Yeah.
You gotta
really
pain. But I remember going to these things with Charlie. I would never have done that, you know. And I remember at one point he
awesome,
goes,
though.
"Let's go," and I'm like, "No, this is amazing." So I've always loved we used to hang out at Crazy Girls and Cheetahs. I was
I love that he turned you on to that, and I love that you were willing to go do it.
yeah. I never say no to an experience.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my rule in life. You never know where the day is going to take you. So you may as well just check it out. And if you don't want to do it again, don't go.
I would take her to punk rock shows or S&M clubs or wherever, and she'd take me to these super fancy fucking celebrity parties that I never would have not been on my radar otherwise.
Yeah. But it was fun. I mean, I think that's why we got along so well, is because it was kind of like, let me show you some shit.
Yeah. It's like having a whole new person to share your world with, and they're putting you on shit you never would. You know what I mean? And that's exciting to turn somebody on to something. Is fun to share that with somebody.
Yeah.
And you said something earlier, because it is true. Like, we both grew up in LA, but on the completely opposite sides of the fence.
It's crazy though, but in proximity.
100%.
Like down the street.
Well, not just that.
But
like,
it's a different world.
That, and I was peripheral because of how I grew up, and I knew all the music people, and I knew all the bands, and I was I've always been a music person. So I was in that scene, but again, not like in the punk scene, not like hanging out with by the time Charlie and I started hanging out, I was like hanging out with musicians.
Black President, my other band, played a show with another Scientologist band. I'm not going to out them because I don't know if people know, but we played the show, and there's a couple of the people in the band are Scientologists. I didn't know this at the time. They were just our homies. Do you want to come play with us? We played, go up in our dressing room, and this is a punk rock show, and there's a bunch of fucking celebrities in there. And I'm like, why the fuck are these? Half the cast of My Name is Earl, Juliette Lewis, all these people. And Juliette Lewis comes up to me and she goes, hey, Charlie, how you been? And I'm like, how the fuck do you know me? And I guess she had remembered me from playing that party.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So funny.
Yeah.
That's the thing about LA, and we have touched on this. There was a lot of overlap. Like, if you knew people in one scene, they bled out. And like, there was a big crew of, I'll just say, like, performers or artists or actors or musicians, and you would hang out at certain places. So you kind of just started to know everybody. I mean, I ironically took headshots back in the day at Giovanni Ribisi's house, and he lived in an apartment building called the Talmadge on Wilshire.
Oh, yeah.
I used to jokingly say it was like a Scientology hub, because like at one point, each floor there was it was like penthouses almost.
Yep.
Like there was like 4 nice apartments, 3-bedroom apartments. And there was probably like 10 high-profile Scientologists that lived in that building. I don't want to, what's the word? Incestual group of people
it's very
in
incestuous.
LA.
What was running through my mind at that time was, I can't believe you were hanging out with Chris and I never ran into you at that time.
No, and I was a lot.
So weird.
Like he had just gotten Malcolm in the Middle.
Yeah.
And Danny just started on that 70s show.
So Danny was in a movie. Here it comes.
Yeah, I know. Here we go. David Faustino.
Here we go.
We almost made it a whole
I was going to say
episode.
I had dinner with him once at the 101, and I did not give a shit about that 70s show. I didn't, whatever. Do you know what I mean? And he was such a fucking douche. I'm like, motherfucker, I don't know. I don't care what your job is. And I ain't the one, knock that shit off.
He had a vibe for sure. But Chris was a sweetheart. LA is incestuous. I mean, there's still, do you still hang out with a bunch of people from that era or not at all?
No, because most of the people from that era have kids and normal lives now. And so
I love it.
If I see them, it's awesome. I'll go to somebody's house to have dinner and watch a Laker game or something like that.
Yep.
But it's very adult. But I don't run into them and most of the time. Most of my grown-up friends or friends from back in the day, you actually have to make plans, and you know what I mean? You know what I mean? And it's all wrapped by 10 o'clock at night, and then, and then I'm off to do whatever I'm off to do, and they're going to bed. I discovered something last year about myself that made so many things, that answered so many questions. I was diagnosed with severe ADHD last year.
Wait, have we not talked about this?
I don't think so.
Oh,
And at first, I was pissed because I thought, I don't want to be another fucking musician with ADHD. You know what I mean? Like, it's so cliche. But the more I started learning about it, so many puzzle pieces started falling into place. And a huge trait of people with ADHD is you don't go to sleep. You just don't. You know what I mean? And so now I do go to sleep, but I heard somebody describe it once as going to bed feels like surrendering. Like there's still something you can accomplish in the day.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And so that's a huge part of why I have my circadian rhythm is upside down.
When you stay up, just out of curiosity, are you being productive, like playing music, writing and stuff?
Usually what I'll be doing is I'll have on spaghetti western or some old movie that only I want to watch. Some girl I'm dating or some friend of mine does not care, has no interest. So I'll be hanging out with my dogs, watching A Fistful of Dollars and just practicing.
I love it.
But yeah, I don't even think I knew you loved animals, but you have become kind of an activist in that world.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And so those are your children, your dogs.
I have 3 dogs. I'm fostering another one, and I have 2 rats, and I love them.
Yeah.
Meat eater, carnivore, or no?
Me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I was vegan, vegetarian. I was hardcore animal rights for 10 years.
Yeah.
I was a member of an organization that was the #1. George W. Bush declared the #1 domestic terrorist organization.
Whoa.
Wait, what?
Yeah, the ALF. I'm no longer a member.
Okay.
What is that?
Animal Liberation Front.
Okay.
And
all right.
I mean, we would break into labs.
Wow.
We would break into factory farms. We did, we were not fucking around.
Yeah.
And somebody very close to me, his house got raided at dawn by the FBI.
Wow.
On the front yard, everybody face down with guns pointed at him. So that was the end of that.
Yeah.
For animal rights?
For animal rights.
How fucked up is this country?
I know.
That's crazy.
That is crazy.
But what happened, the reason I started eating meat again is because I started having these health issues in my mid-30s, and I was married at the time, and my wife at the time looked up my blood type, and she's like, you are the only blood type that has to eat meat.
Yeah.
You were
Not
a
only
vampire.
that, but you have to eat red meat.
Yeah.
And it was hard. You know what I mean? And I was slow to come around. At first, it was just fish and then poultry. And then eventually I got blood panels. And eventually my doctor told me, he's like, you're not getting all the benefits from this that you need to. You need to eat a fucking steak.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And as soon as I started incorporating red meat in my diet, I felt like a different person. Like I couldn't keep weight on. I couldn't keep muscle on. I wasn't sleeping well. I started having digestive issues. And all of that became because I was vegan for 10 years. But anybody that's going to shit on veganism, there are blood types that should not eat meat at all. Like if you hear of somebody getting coronary or arteriosclerosis or whatever, those are the blood types that should not eat meat. And that's their body saying, don't give me another fucking hamburger.
Yeah.
You know,
it's interesting because you just brought up ADHD and like we're learning so much about ourselves now in this day and age because there's just been so much more data and science. Like we all have different brain types. We all have different blood types. It all operates differently. The fact that we would even be naive enough to think that one person's red meat is another person's death sentence.
Isn't that crazy?
It's nuts. Or like one person's affliction of the way their brain works or a group of people's way their brain works is an actual thing. And I can't believe we haven't talked about it. We can talk about it another time because I obviously post a ton of stuff. But I got diagnosed with ADHD through my son.
That does not surprise me at all.
Shit, right? All of it. My whole life made sense. My mom's life made sense. My mom made sense. The ADHD issue, because I think there's this misnomer that people are like, all of a sudden, everyone has ADHD. And it's like, no.
Oh, I know.
When you can track it back to your childhood, and I look at my high school performance and graduating with a 1.9 and still being probably the smartest person in the room, at least I thought I was most of the time. And, not being able to sit still, not be emotionally is really where we started seeing it with my son and myself. It's like big emotions. Like, you're super excited, but you're also super angry. And like, it's very hard to control and morph through your feelings. I mean, that's a really hard thing. The executive functioning to like switch gears. I don't have that, I will ruminate, which is an OCD
Do you take medication?
I do now.
What do you take?
Now. Wellbutrin, actually. I take Wellbutrin.
For ADHD?
Yes, because it has a stimulant aspect to it.
Interesting.
Yeah. But I haven't taken Ritalin. I haven't taken Adderall or any of that stuff.
I cannot imagine you on Adderall.
Well, here's what's so funny. I actually took an Adderall once.
Yeah.
Calm as a fucking cucumber.
Really?
I could focus, and I was in Cannes for work. And I remember I had landed and like we immediately had to go out. And I had severe panic attacks. I was I'm still like, drugs freak me out. I didn't smoke pot for 20 years. Like I really stayed away from it. I never did coke. I've never done anything.
No.
So I took like half of an Adderall and I forgot because it's like I landed, I was already like dazed and confused. And I said that twice in this podcast. Hi, welcome to my ADHD, trying to get a thought going out. Somebody gave me half of an Adderall and I took it. And then I think like 5 hours later, I realized I was able to have a full conversation and actively listen to somebody else and not think about what I was going to say next, or I needed to be somewhere else, or I want to get out of this conversation. So what do I do? And I remember like going, oh, I feel so much clearer. And my friend goes, oh, it's the Adderall. And I was like, oh, I thought it was going to make me all speedy, and it didn't. And so I didn't even realize then. It was like 10 plus years ago. I would have never, I made jokes, oh, it's my ADHD, but I didn't know I actually had it. And it really does, when you find out later, it's like all of a sudden everything comes into focus, And I don't know what your experience was or why you got diagnosed, if there was like a reason.
I was hanging out with this girl and we became fast friends. And like we had so much, like, I would pick her up for dinner at 10 o'clock. She'd be like, I just finished work, whatever. Do you want to grab food? I'd pick her up. I would drop her off at 5 a.m. We would never stop talking. We just click. And it struck me as odd because I certainly don't open up to many people, but there's something about our shared language, whatever. And then she was talking about people like us, we, and I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, well, people with ADHD. And I said, I don't have, she goes, the fuck you don't. And she goes, and she started
reading the DSM.
Well, no, she started listing off traits that she had noticed in my behavior and the way I thought. And she's like, bruh, well, she didn't say bruh, but she said, you have ADHD. She goes, I can't believe you've gone this long in life, sober especially, and didn't find this out, and nobody's ever pointed this out to you. She goes, I might be wrong, but I bet I'm right. And then I went and I got a diagnosis, and they were like, oh yeah, you're off the fucking charts.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Right. That's the craziest part. Like when you start reading about it, and I'm like that girl, I diagnose everybody now. It's terrible.
I go, okay, there's a reason for this. And then I will go online and I will try to find, okay, what is the coping? What is the fix? What is how do I address this particular trait?
Right. Right.
Do you know what I mean? And maybe I don't have OCD, but I thought I did forever because everything has to be in a specific place. And my house has to be neat. And
you always were very neat.
Yeah. And the reason is because I have to know where things are, because it's so easy for me to get distracted that if I misplace something and I go to look for it, 3 hours later, I'm cleaning my garage.
Wow.
That is exactly what happens.
Yeah.
It's true. It is a real thing.
I had to learn a song the other day, and it was part of I had a session the next day, and I need to learn this song. 4 hours later, I have gotten in a full workout, and I have cleaned my entire house, and I don't know the song.
Yeah.
And that's just how your brain fucking works.
Yeah.
And it's fucking frustrating. You know what I mean?
When you need to do something and you can't, that is the hardest. Like the ADHD paralysis.
But it's not laziness.
No.
Because like I said, I had gotten in a full workout and cleaned my fucking house, cleaned the rat cage, like everything.
100%. It's like procrastination, but you're actually busy.
Right,
and it's not you're not unmotivated or lazy. It's just that task is non-preferred.
Yeah. But if I'm watching The Getaway or Bullet, my brain is occupied and my hands are occupied. So there's this coping thing in ADHD called body doubling, where you have somebody come over, like if you need to get a task done, you have somebody come over who is doing the task with you, or they don't even have to be, but they know they're your lifeguard, basically.
Yeah.
They know you're supposed to finish this fucking project.
It's like your ADHD sponsor.
Yes. And movies are like that for me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like if I have to be I can't multitask, but I can.
Yes.
Like my brain can be occupied. Like I get my best practicing done watching Laker games. because my hands are just going and my brain is doing this.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Fortunately, for people like Smokey and me, we're intelligent and talented enough at what we do to where when that inspiration hits, we can just get right into it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Look, half of the unfortunate part of ADHD is it comes with a very heavy dose of anxiety, which and a lot of addiction issues.
I think if you were to define punk rock by neurodivergency, it would be ADHD and what we used to call Asperger's.
Oh,
Three chords and the truth. Get to the fucking point now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's generally an aggressive truth. So yeah, 100%.
Well, what's going on with you now? Like right now, you're working on new music with Goldfinger. Where are we? Where are we today?
We put a record out recently called Never Look Back, and we've been touring on that, and we're doing a bunch of fucking festivals this year. I'm producing other bands.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, I've done that off and on for a long time now, which is, for somebody with ADHD and being a control freak, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I've been in music for so fucking long that it's funny to work with a young band and just see all the mistakes they're making and go, I've been there. It's not that I'm smarter than you, and it's not that I'm more talented. It's just that I've made all these mistakes already. Don't do this.
Right. Right.
Are there any bands that you're working with that you can tell us about?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of bands I could tell you about that I just think are fucking awesome. I'm producing a record in May by this band called Drac and the Swamp Rats, and they're like...
That's a great name.
There's 4 of them, and they all dress like classic Universal horror monsters.
I love it.
Which you think would be kind of cheesy and gimmicky, except for they fucking throw down.
Okay.
They're like a cross between Black Flag and the Cramps. And
wow.
So yeah, I'm really excited to start that record. And there's a bunch of bands around LA right now that are just, there's a couple of trans artists who I think are fucking just genius off the hook. There's a band called Dagger Polyester, and they're like a cross between Aladdin Sane era Bowie and Sparks and Grace Jones.
Have you played with them?
No, but I post them all the time.
I've seen your posts.
Dagger Polyester. There's this woman named, she performs under the name I Speak Machine, and it's like a cross between Gary Newman and Nine Inch Nails, but she's doing her whole, dude, it's fucking insane. She's one woman, and I go see her show, and she's up there by herself, totally commands the stage. Yeah. There's another artist that I have played with a few times named Ms. Neon. So yeah, there's so much great music happening, and people ask me oftentimes, is punk dead? And I'm like, no, but it's coming from women, it's coming from marginalized people, it's coming from the trans community, it's coming from the LGBT community, because there's nothing punk rock about a bunch of straight white dudes sounding just like every band they grew up on. Punk is about being marginalized, it's about being an outcast, it's about firing up new paths. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And there's not, I mean, look, I love punk rock and it's sacred to me, but I don't think that, I mean, what is traditionally accepted as punk rock and what my band plays and what a lot of our fellows play we've been doing it for almost 50 years now. There's nothing new and revolutionary about it. Do you know what I mean?
But all this stuff that you're talking about is really new and revolutionary and really interesting. Yeah. That's cool. We're going to say they heard it here first on 90who10.
I know. I love that. Maybe we can even add a song if there's any songs on the
So before we go, give us one or two of your best celebrity stories.
One of my favorite stories from our past is we went we went to the Maverick Grammy party one year.
Okay.
I do not remember any of this.
Yes. And it was...
Oh, DJ AM was playing.
I don't remember.
Okay, yeah.
But that much I don't remember. But I remember it was at some little spot on Fancy Melrose. Like where Melrose
It was
ends.
where Chiconi's is now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so we go to this thing and Madonna's there. And I get to meet Madonna because I was standing around a group of people and she's so tiny.
Tiny.
That I didn't realize she was there. And like my singer was working with Maverick in some capacity. So whoever it was knew me through that association. Feldman was working with Maverick. So somehow somebody there knew me through that. And there's a group of people and she's being introduced to people. And I just get introduced to her. Like, Madonna, this is Charlie from Goldfinger. I'm like, hi, Madonna.
Right.
And again, she's this big.
Yeah.
The funniest part of that night, though, was somehow, I don't know if they were friends or if they just met that night, but Michael Keaton was hanging out with your dad.
Oh, no, they knew each other.
Okay.
Yeah.
Michael Keaton takes a shine to this one.
Oh, there's stories there. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, and she was not interested.
Yeah.
Well, he's my dad's age.
He's not quite your dad's age,
almost.
but yeah.
Yeah, she was polite, but she was like, and then.
Oh, God.
And so we walk away from it. At the end of the night, we're walking out. Open bar. That's all I'm going to say. Open bar.
I was swaying my
we're
way
feeling
out
no
of the
pain.
place.
We're walking out, and Michael Keaton runs up, and he's like, hey, he's trying to, catch her at the last minute or whatever. And she's just like, and she jumps on me, piggyback.
I love it.
And I'm walking out. I go, sorry, Batman.
Oh, that is great. I love it. I love it. Yeah, drop the mic. I love it.
I had met Michael Keaton when I was like 19, and I'm not kidding. He hit on me right in front of my dad once.
Oh, he hit on her that night in front of both of us.
And I'm like, haven't we done this before?
Oh,
like, there were
wow.
a couple people in Hollywood that hit on me multiple times over and over. And I'm like, literally, Michael Vartan. Every time I was out, I'm like, you've literally done this to me. Either you don't remember me or like I look different every time, but dude, no. So
I love it.
I have one more.
Oh,
Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
She took me to Adam Sandler's 4th of July party.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So I did have a brief moment where I was very close with Adam Sandler.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah.
So we're there, and dude, it is a fucking who's who. I mean, everybody was there.
Jennifer
Brad
Aniston,
Pitt,
Rob
Drew Barrymore.
Schneider.
I like how you put Rob Schneider in that company.
Fuck it. David Spade.
Yeah, American Gigolo. Oh, David Spade. Jesus Christ. Anyway, but yeah, Jim Carrey was there. And here's the thing. In that context, there was no attitudes. There was no egos. Everybody, well, first of all, everybody was fucking hammered. Secondly, dude, Jim Carrey was cool as fuck. I've heard that he is the stereotypical fucking nightmare celebrity, but he was so fucking cool that night. Yeah. So cool.
I've had that experience when you hear somebody's a nightmare and they're the nicest guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
But it was in a situation where people were comfortable, right?
Yeah.
As a friend and like.
And they figured if I was there, I probably belonged there and whatever. But Smoke sitting next to me, Adam sitting next to her. And I told him this story. I said, our very first tour, we were in a fucking minivan. 4 very different personalities in our band. And one of the only tapes that we could agree on to listen to was his comedy record.
That's hysterical.
And I said, you probably kept us from breaking up on that first tour because that first tour was gnarly. And he's like, I'm glad to hear that, Charlie. Good luck with the tour. And I'm like, he didn't hear a fucking word I said. 2 days later, our manager calls me and says, did you meet Adam Sandler? And I said, yeah. I go, why? She goes, he's got some movie coming out. He specifically requested Goldfinger cover this song to be in the soundtrack. And I was like, what? I said, he was so fucking drunk. He probably saw 3 of me when we were talking. She goes, well, we just got the call from his people. And he specifically mentioned you and the band. So next thing I know, we're in Sunset Sound recording a cover of More Than Yesterday, which was particularly poignant for me because she and I were having a hard time at the time. And that song is so sappy. And I was just like, oh, fuck. And that wound up in
The Waterboy.
The Waterboy. Yeah, that song is in The Waterboy.
I wrote a lyric to that, The Lonesome Kicker, and to this day, I'm still pissed off. I didn't get like my 4% publishing on that.
I know, you should have.
I did. The cold plate of French fries. That was fucking me. And Adam took it and didn't. We were all sitting in a room.
He probably didn't remember it was you.
No, I know. He doesn't remember me. I ran into him at Hillcrest once. I'm like, hey. And he goes, I know you.
Wow. You know,
I'm
I mean,
you named your daughter after my dog.
I don't know him, but I've heard so many stories about what a great guy he is.
Honestly, the time that I spent hanging out with him, because it was an interesting time. I mean, from 19 to 22, or 23, the people that I hung out with and knew was really all over the place.
Yeah.
It was
a crazy fucking time. And because of Jess's connections and because my band had achieved some level of notoriety, we got invited to these things that I'm still like a total Hollywood street kid. And it's funny, people think Hollywood is not like that.
No.
I'm Hollywood Boulevard Hollywood.
Right.
And it's scummy and it's sketchy and it's, you know what I mean? And it's cops and that's not the Hollywood that people think of when they think. I mean, I've spent most of my life on Hollywood Boulevard. I've never ever seen a bona fide celebrity on Hollywood Boulevard unless they're getting a star.
Right. It's so true. It is so true.
Or it's at a premiere or something like that.
That is the truest thing.
Hollywood Boulevard is, and just the actual town of Hollywood is like The Walking Dead.
And it's gotten worse.
It's fucking
terrible.
sketchy.
For sure.
And that's where I came from. So for me to be at Adam Sandler's house and having Jim Carrey ask my opinion of something like, the fuck?
It's awesome.
You know what I mean? That was not where I came
That's
from.
awesome.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was good. It was good times.
Yeah.
Good times.
I posted a meme a couple years ago, and it must have been before quarantine because Deftones, Limp Bizkit, and System of a Down were going to tour together. And somebody put up a meme, and it was these bands are touring together, but it was a picture of Guy Fieri and a couple other people, and a Borat for System of a Down, and I don't remember who Fred Durst was, but it was fucking hilarious.
Oh my God.
And I did not, it was way more towards Biscuit and System.
Yeah.
Because I love Gino. I love the Deftones.
Yeah.
Gino talked me out of quitting my band the first time, actually.
Yeah.
I was really good friends with Deftones, Korn, and Biscuit at a certain time because my roommate at the time, Nathan, was a video director, and he'd worked with all of them. And like 9 o'clock, we'd get a call. Hey, we're all at so-and-so's house. Hey, we're all going to this club. Hey, we're all whatever. And we would go to the Crazy Girls because that was like the Cheers for working bands.
Honestly, I remember hanging out there with Orgy.
Yeah. Orgy was that. Yeah, because we didn't really hang out with other punk rock bands at the time because they all lived in Orange County or whatever. And I lived in Hollywood, and these were my peers. These were the people we hung out with. You know what I mean? But if Chino happens to see this, that was not directed at you, homie. I love you.
They're good guys.
Yeah,
they are. And
great band.
And it's funny, the Deftones were one of the most streamed bands of Gen Z last year.
No way.
They became
makes
a meme.
sense.
They became a meme.
They did a
that
recent
TikTok
Well, they're
thing.
still relevant because their music, even though they came out at that time, it didn't sound like those bands.
No, and they're playing Coachella this year, and they have a new album coming out.
Coachella.
So, we also represent them. Very excited about all of this.
Oh, that's right.
Anyway, I am so thankful that you came on. You're just like a fucking blast from the past, and I'm sorry I was such an asshole.
I was
I'm
too.
still an asshole, but it was fun.
Too.
We had a time.
Oh, yeah.
We had a time, and he remembers when I was cute and young, and
You look the same. You look the same.
Thank you. That makes me feel really good. Anyway, I'm so thankful you came and drove across town.
Yes.
It's
Me
been
too.
So amazing to see you. I love that you brought some punk fucking rock to the show. Now we can see
I gotta admit, when you first asked me on, I went and I started listening to episodes, and I'm like, this is not my world at all.
No,
I don't know
but
why.
You had great stories.
But he's also extremely, extremely bright. So you
shit.
can tell. Also one of the main like reasons I love Stevie Wonder as much as I do.
Oh, wow.
And he's a huge Stevie Wonder fan, a huge Prince fan, and a huge Alfred Hitchcock fan.
Well, she was saying when we first met, punk rock and my band were alien to her, but she put me on the Roots for the first time.
Yeah.
Erykah Badu.
Craig
is like,
Mack.
Yeah.
Erykah Badu, Sade. I mean, I was aware of these people. Estero. I was aware of these people, but she this was what she'd be playing in her house. And I was like, this is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
To the point, I had a experience with the Roots. I don't think we were talking anymore, but I wanted to tell you about this so bad. We were playing some college show and with the Roots, and they showed up and their gear didn't. And it was getting really close to their showtime, and they didn't have any gear. And they're like, can we please borrow your gear for our show?
Wow.
And I was like, you can have my guitar.
That's cool.
Thank you so much for joining us for this very eventful episode of 90who10. I have to thank our guest, Charlie Paulson from Goldfinger.
Yeah.
Dear friend, I'm so glad we got to reconnect. Thank you for driving out here.
Thanks for having me.
Dan, thank you for asking all the interesting questions.
I feel like Charlie's my friend now.
He's great. You guys can go
100%.
to meetings together.
I love
It's
it.
amazing.
Yeah.
All right. Until next time, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, check out every single one of those bands that you mentioned.
Yes.
Check out Goldfinger, follow Charlie on Instagram, follow me, follow Dan, do all the things. And until next time, keep it funky.
That's